Chapter 7. The game has changed. The door of Hospital and Loan and Trust came open. As the bell rang out with a festive jingle, a few flakes of holiday snow followed an amber-colored coat as he walked within. The secretary looked up to see the familiar colors of carrot cake emerging from beneath the festive dusting. The freckled face smiled up to her as he stopped his hose and tried to shake off most of the snow that clung to him. "Hello," he called out, doing his best to keep the snow upon the rung that lay upon the door. "Happy Heartswarming Eve!" "Happy Heartswarming Eve, Carrot," she answered, replying to a smile with one of her own. He looked around the office and was surprised to see a little tree covered with magical lights. Upon contemplating it, he realized there had been a wreath upon the door as well. All this struck him as a tad odd. He thought of Corey's Astor office. The stallion did not seem like one whom such a holiday would mean much. Still, the tree sat there blinking away happily. Carrot looked at the check from the saddlebags and chatted with the secretary, Paperclip, for a little while. As he told her about how wonderful things were going at the bakery, his mind kept going back there, knowing that Cupcake was there right now waiting for him. Right now she was seeing to the welcome, retiring waves of customers that had been drawn to the bakery in anticipation of the holiday. Together today they were going to try something new, try to fill an unusual order. As he chatted with Paperclip, he suddenly felt the same pall fall over him that marked each of his appearances in the loan office. He felt the same tremble go through him, the same weight of eyes that had not diminished since he had been keeping the schedule, bringing the checks around. He lifted his eyes to see those of Quarry meet his. The stallion had not emerged from the closed door of the office, but instead, from what Carrot assumed, was a records room on the opposite side of the hallway.
"I told you that you didn't need to bring that one around day after the holiday, Cake,"
Drifted the stallion's words. Carrot took a discreet breath and tried to focus forward. He once more found himself unable to look the bulky stallion in the eyes for very long. I just don't want to get out of the habit of bringing it along. Don't want to forget to bring it every 2 weeks," stammered Carrot as he looked to where the check had laid on the secretary's desk. He tried to lift his eyes once more. Quarry's gray eyes still sat deep in his cold features.
"Don't know why you chose every 2 weeks instead of monthly either. Cost you more in the end,"
spoke Quarry in his usual rumble of attached judgment, his tone implying dubious belief in Carrot's business acumen. Carrot felt himself wanting to answer, to tell the stallion that the sooner he was done paying, the sooner he felt that Cupcake would be with him as a true partner. He would no longer need to be hanging on the fruits of her work for payments. They would spend more time simply being together. He felt himself wanting to tell the stallion that the sooner he was done paying back the loan, he would never have to sit here under Quarry's cold gaze again. No longer have to live with the idea of what would happen if something went wrong. The image of Quarry ripping apart the carrots would finally leave him. He glanced at Paperclip, saw the secretary still smiling at him. He wondered how she stood to be here. He wanted to say these things, as Quarry's deep breath filled the reception room. All Carrot could muster to himself was, I'm motivated to be done with it." Quarry gave a non-committal grunt and flicked his tail. All was quiet in the office for a moment, the blinking of the tree lights shining that much brighter at the approach of the early winter nights. Suddenly, Carrot remembered what he had brought with him, what he had always brought with him each time he had pawned his loan payment. Attempting to slide out of his saddlebags, he caught them once again, an accident that at least seemed to happen with him here in this place. He released the strap and held the bag to the floor. From within, he produced 2 brightly wrapped parcels. He placed them on the desk as they unfolded and revealed themselves as 2 fruitcakes. I made them for you both. Happy Heartswarming," he said, looking at both the other ponies. "You know how much I look forward to you coming in," spoke Paperclip. Carrot marveling once more at how free and easily she spoke with the large form of Quarry hovering nearby. "Seems that the only thing the other police brings us are bad news."
"And excuses,"
completed Quarry, raising his head to look into the paper baskets, each wrapped as they were with the shimmering paper. And once the heat of the room lifted the aroma of the 2 warm fruitcakes into the air, filling the place with a holiday scent.
"Damn it, that don't smell good, though,"
said Quarry as he raised his head. He stared at the amber-colored coal as Carrot began to blanch.
Tastes kind of like cake,
he said. Karen felt himself fall into a certain foreign sense of Corey's gratitude. He risked a small smile at the stallion as he raised his head and looked down upon it once more. With that, the sensation was gone. You're welcome. Happy Hearthswarming, both of you, he said as he backed towards the door. With the jangle of the bell ringing out once more, Karen nodded and departed to the cold street. Paperclip rose up and began folding paper baskets back together, preserving the warmth of the two gifts. As she did, she heard Corey give a sigh, shake his head, and turn towards his office. You don't need to be so hard on them, she said, as he placed Corey's fruitcake among the stallion's things, so he would not leave it there in the office over the holiday.
There's two kinds of ponies in this world of Molly.
She heard him call from his dark office.
Those who owe it and those who are owed. Though the two are as different as the good sun and the cold moon. It soon makes.
Paperclip sighed and looked down at the two brightly red packages. He's not a bad colt, though, she said.
Never said he was. Just said he owes me money,
stated Corey as he once more moved from his office to the supply room.
And I learned a long time ago that anyone who owes you money is always looking for ways to be done owing you money. Always wants something from you to get out of it. They either need to fear you or they'll try to get up on you.
She sighed aloud.
Don't go thinking any different about cake than you would any of the greasy goat lickers that come in here demanding this or that, and they'll get their lures. He might bring us something from that daffy named bakery of his, but in the end, he's no different from those who try to scare me with big words. Think old Quarry is some dolt who...
She felt him shudder through the wall of the supply room, the floorboards quietly shaking as he attempted to regain himself from his growing anger.
I meant it when I said thanks, though,
he said in a neutral tone, his voice carrying from the supply room. She lowered her head and turned towards the window of the office. His cynicism watched over the room as it always had, moved through in a foam as palpable and forceful as Corey himself. It was powerful. The slowly twinkling tree fought the boy's spirit. Paperclip looked at her head and began to ask him about some small affairs from the office. She instead looked up to see him standing in the doorframe of the supply room. Something hung from his mouth. Corey walked fully forward and laid the gift on her desk.
Happy Hearthswarming Eve, Paperclip,
the big stallion said, nodding to her. Thank you, she whispered. I put yours among your things. Thought it'd be a surprise. Corey looked at the bags. There he saw a thin packet nestled between his fruitcake and the cake Cole had bought.
Thank you, Paperclip,
he said, nodding once more.
Take the rest of the afternoon off. See you in 3 days.
Far out across the market square of Ponyville, Carrie turned his attention to a now familiar structure. His bakery sat there in the middle of the open block of paving stones, the chimney happily puffing away. As he cantered by, he looked up to see the gingerbread trim, knowing how festive it looked, how inspiring what would happen within the day. He also noted the name on the sign. He still had not changed it, and the more he looked at Carrot Cake's Bakery Company, LLC Incorporated, the less he liked it. Still, that was not something he had to ponder right now. Right now, a far more welcome task awaited him. He stirred within and began to snake the snow from himself. As he did, a delicious scent steamed out over him and filled his nostrils. Cupcake? He called. Are you? Before he even completed his question, she was already coming to him, her host falling across the wooden floors, coming to greet him at the door. Greeting him at the door, the realization made him very happy. Any customers? He asked as he shook off his salad bags. Oh, a few, she said, looking into him, her rosy eyes catching his. He leaned down and closed his eyes. Slowly, she lifted her nose and let her wide figure eight run back and forth between them as they nuzzled each other. The sense of their touch warmed him. After a long minute, he raised his head. She smiled and stated, I think we have everything. Are you ready to try this? He smiled down at her. She quickly brushed the snow from his orange mane, as the two tried deeper within the bakery. Together, they entered the kitchen. The gingerbread had cooled, and now it was time to try to make the first gingerbread house the bakery had ever produced. It was a long struggle, one with many false starts. At times it became a trial, an epic challenge. At other times it descended into hilarity as parts collapsed, or various components went flying across the room. Cupcake stood back at one point, saw how hard he was concentrating. He had never done this before, and yet she was astounded at his concentration, his dedication. She noted the persistence in his hopes, and he made concentrated, perfect moments to create the details. At one point, he wiped the back of his hoof across his brow, leaving a white streak across his forehead. With a giggle, she lifted the frosting tube, thought of leaving a great white doll above, but something caught her, stopped her. "No, not this time," he said to say with a defiant laugh, "but someday." Hours passed. As the appointed hour arrived, they stood together in the main showcase of the room of the bakery, and awaited the pony to commence to the gingerbread house. It looked ill, lopsided. It reminded him both of the bakery itself when they first set eyes on it. Cupcake saw the worry that floated in Carrot. He wanted to do this for so long, and it moved beyond just making bulk breads and rolls and move into the world of creative baking. If the customer liked it, then anything was possible. Carrot felt an extraordinary sensation go through him. Cupcake's forelegs were across his withers, and he felt her lightness upon him as she slowly nibbled his ear. Just drawing his ear across her lips with the tusks of her teeth, just enough to draw him out of his worry. After a moment, she sat before him, and with that, he placed his legs around her. As the bell rang, the two jumped. An older pony stood there smiling at him. "Oh, hello, Mrs. Smith," called out Cupcake as she drew herself up, buzzing as Carrot did the same. "Hello, and perhaps, woman," she said as he tried forward to look at the gingerbread house that stood on its display among the table. "This one, ma'am?" she asked with a touch of credulous concern. "This here the gingerbread house I ordered?" Yes," answered Cupcake. Is it okay? Does it look good?" "How much extra is it?" said Granny Smith, eyeing the two. I'm sorry, extra?" asked the blinking Carrot. "For being so much bigger, putting all these fancy beans all over it. How much extra you gotta charge me?" she said, her voice almost getting angry. Cupcake and Carrot looked at another, then back to her. "No, ma'am, nothing. That's pretty much just a standard house, like you ordered," she adds. "This here is just your famous gingerbread house?" she answered, as her face brightening. "I call this just fine. It's my fine. My grandson and granddaughter will love it. Come on up." Carrot and Cupcake absolutely beamed with pride as they wrapped the gingerbread house in a protective box. Soon a pile of bits sat gleaming in the cash register as they saw Granny Smith to the door. "Here behind Sherman's both of you," she struggled to say as the large box sat perched upon her carefully. "Say, is this your first housewarming together as a married couple?" Cupcake looked up. She realized as he had once more lowered herself to his chest, that his head was over hers, and his heel was wrapped within his forelegs. The two blushed brightly and made little sounds of embarrassment. "Oh," answered Cupcake, we aren't married." "You forgive me, I hope," said Granny Smith with a wink as Carrot opened the door to her. "Rather an honest mistake with how well you two seem to fit together." As the shop closed and the fires came out of the ovens, they soon found themselves close to one another again. As they sat there with their heads across each other's withers, they swayed slightly, as though in a dance. What are you doing tomorrow?" she asked, without lifting her head from his withers. "What are you doing for the holiday?" "Oh," he answered, "not much. Just Mom and I some small gifts. There's not much I want." He paused. He felt her move a little closer to him, wrap her arms closer to his. This was fine. This could last the entire day. "What about you?" he asked. To his alarm, she said nothing. After a moment, she lifted her head and started to back away. She reached behind the corner and began to fish around. Soon, he realized what she was doing. As she turned back to him, she saw him jump for the rustic beams above, saw him snatch something. She had to admit, she wouldn't have thought to look there. The present stood before the two of them. With a wide smile, she passed hers to him first. He opened it, and out came a bow tie. "Oh, wow, I've never worn one before," he said as he lifted it. She slowly wrapped it around him, felt the breast of her host against his neck as he tried to cavate. Caught to look at her eyes as he calmly looked at him happily. And now I don't know if I'll ever take it off, he concluded. You know, there's a frequent joke in Pit's meeting when they do prequels where they make fun of this one particular object that a character gets. And they make the joke of, yep, we're finally exploring the origin of that. Well, it's occasionally a good gag. I'd like to point out, it's not always just a, ooh, now you know the origin type of thing. It's more like just a cute reference that people will get. Just a cute little thing like, oh, that's how cute. That makes it actually feel like the world's growing. It's exploring. Just like here. It makes it kind of cute and adorable and kind of adds a little thing. World building and character building are not bad things. I keep telling people this. She giggled at his statement as he passed her a gift. She took her time opening it, quickly realizing that she was one of those mares who would value the paper. Probably save it in the ribbon. Cupcake's eyes went wide as the small jewelry box stood before her. He flipped it open. The earrings stood there, catching the light. They were the only things that I could find that... The only things that matched the color of your eyes, he said sleeplessly. She looked down to the earrings. He obviously had not noticed that her ears were not pierced. As he smiled back to him, Cupcake knew that did not matter. Since he had given her these, they soon would be. She leaned forward, laid her cheek to his, and slid down the length of his neck to his shoulders. Once more the two sat there, swayed back and forth in the fading heat and the smell of gingerbread. She lifted her head and moved quickly, planting a small delicate kiss on his lips. He looked back at her quizzically. That was for your mother, from me, she said, as understanding grew on his face. Please, sir, she gets it, right? Sure, he said as he cast his eyes down to hers. Sure thing. With that, she leaned in again, leaned in much deeper, and leaned against him fully. With that, he answered a kiss that was meant for him alone, one that lasted a great satisfying while as the snow drifted around once more, when he went up the street outside, singing holiday songs. Okay, everybody, who thinks they did it? I want to say they did it. Hard. The following morning, 3 happy fillies bounced around inside their room, asking parents to wake them as they went down. Yahoo! I love delaying their tricks! Trixie figures to be expected. It's not as fun. As they did, the presents sat there, shimmering beneath the tree. And for the first time in the household, peals of laughter and joy made a heartwarming day. On a mountainside far away, in Canterlot, that fabled city where both magic, deep and terrible, flows freely as the waters that race through its channels, Ivy's parents had joined her in the restaurant at their hotel. Before them, a magnificent buffet had been spread out, one that would consume the morning with the bounty unoffered. As the young intern sat with them, the family exchanged their presents. Lizard stared happily at his daughter as she regaled her mother with tales of a palace intrigue and political intricacies. In a small white house, Cheesecake and Carrot Cake woke late, greeted one another, then went to a brunch he had prepared in a small kitchen. As they had sat in the living room, they exchanged a few presents and talked long into the afternoon. In a large home on the other side of Ponyville, Cupcake had laid among her nieces and nephew as they implored her to help them open their new toys, asked her to play with them. As much as she rejoiced in the presence of these children, how much her heart swelled as they gave her their small school gifts and wrapped her in hugs. There was one she longed to be with, to share mornings with this. And back in that White House, he wished for her to be here. Corey, having forgotten something of importance, walked the quiet morning streets in a huff, lamenting loudly that there seemed to be no stores open. The old stallion stopped to breathe, the cold air falling as vapor from his mouth as he pondered the day. Music drifted from nearby houses. None of them could feel it, these partners and these players in the game of this. But as they celebrated that morning, the strange causality that linked each other to one another wrapped around them that much more. As trimmed as the ribbon around the packets, all of these participants had been drawn closer to one another, linked with the tendrils of fate that flowed from Carrot and Cupcake as they sat in the light of their trees and thought of only one another. The scene moved once more, and as time passed, the holiday colors of the early winter faded to that deepest part, the least happy part. As the time sped on, the bakery kept producing its bounty, offering the warmth of breads and sweets to those who sought to escape the cold misery of winter. Carrie could only smile as the bakery began to serve those coming off the street, those who were beginning to seek out the warmth, those caught in the lure to smell of fresh baked bread on a cold morning. As the winter faded, Carrie found himself assailed by one of his most ancient of enemies, one he could not face alone. In short, it was tax time, and he was simply horrible at math. Fortunately for him and his bakery, Cupcake was there. They decided that they would work together, Carrot doing as best as he could to help her, and together they would finish the taxes in one night. He couldn't help but look to her as he scratched away, looking every inch a true partner in this enterprise as he brought with her warm drinks and treats to snack upon. He read the numbers back to her, cautiously skipping over any details of the loan he had taken out. He did not want her to feel that he had placed any burden on him. He didn't want her to know that he had indebted himself to a pony like Corey. He could still picture the fearful look on her face on that day, long ago in the mill. He slipped the loan payments and interest into the calculations, hid it from her in the hope that she would not worry about him owing anything. He could not know it, but he had just committed a fragrant foul in the game of this. As the evening drew on, they found themselves in the inevitable position of being able to draw some conclusions. As 10 o'clock rolled around, they began placing these conclusions on the forms. With their jaws dropping open, they realized that they had just finished their taxes. Not only that, but the best available evidence seemed to suggest that Carrot and his bakery were due for a refund, and not a small one at that. Celestia and simple deductions be praised. I cannot take all the credit. Lyneth helped fix most of the taxes at the time. And when I got back, I refixed that tax code! As they sat, the taxes went into an envelope as they finished their treats and drinks, chatting as the night wore away. As Cupcake began to yawn, the hallway clocks began to chime 11, startling her in the slightest. Outside, the mare and the moon cast their glance over the frozen streets of Ponyville. Seeing the ice covered everything, the Pegasi having let it get too warm by a fraction of a degree during a day. I don't like you going out in that. You might fall, he said, gathering up jackets. Let me walk you home to the lamppost. Then you can fall on the way back and I feel horrible, she said as she tried to hide her small yawn again. Yeah. Besides, I told her we'd be staying out tonight. Cupcake startled and looked at Carrot. But I forgot to ask you. I didn't think to ask you. May I stay here tonight? May I sleep on the couch? On one of the chairs? Nah, you can sleep on my bed, he said as he immediately placed the coats on the hook. Just let me put some fresh sheets on. You don't have to, she began. He thought it was already past her, and trotting up to the stairs to the living space above the bakery. He tossed various and sundry items into his closet that he did not particularly care to have her see lying around his room, generally trying to straighten it as he went about his hurried state. He opened up the linen closet and was almost obscenely happy that there were, in fact, clean sheets for her to lie upon. As he quickly stripped the bed of sheets and blankets, a welcome sound came up the stairs. Wonderfully familiar hoofballs sounding out in the hallway, and looked up to see her standing at the door of his bedroom, smiling a small smile. Aren't you the gentle coat? She said. And where will you sleep? Oh, he said. Somewhere. He fumbled with the seat, as he watched the unexpected and unmatched pillowcase fall from it. Here, she said as he looked at her hoof. Let me help. Together they circled the bed, laying the blankets and sheets. For the first time that evening, he was wordless. Carrot unable to think of anything appropriate to say as a beautiful mare walked around his bedroom. Dude, if it had been me, and there was a beautiful mare in my room, I know several different things I would love to say, but I will not because Trixie has threatened to electrocute me again. All too soon they had finished. As he began to move the earrings, he found himself blushing and turning towards the door. If you need anything, the blankets are here in the linen closet, and the attached bedroom is a mess. Out of order! He called in a small alarm. So, use the one down the hallway, okay? Okay, she said as she trotted slowly over to him and lifted her nose. His tiredness faded as the soft feel of her touch withdrew him once more, as the feeling of their presence drifted through one another. So familiar, welcome, was the touch as she shifted her head. He knew what she was asking for. As they settled to their goodnight kiss, he found himself opening his eyes to look upon her face as they parted. Silence hung there, neither speaking, blushes growing across their faces as they stood in the bedroom. Within both the understanding hung, there was no more they wanted to say. That the night they simply come too early. Good night, Kenneth, she whispered, putting the conversation to rest for the night. Good night, Cupcake, he said as he backed down the room. Soon he was gone in the hallway as the night seemed to settle around the bakery deeper tones. Cupcake soon collapsed upon the bed and rubbed her eyes. As the thoughts of numbers and deductions fell from her, she felt herself wanting to go to sleep, grateful for the expanse of the bed beneath her. It was warm enough in the room, and the bed was big and deep. But sleep would not come. As he wondered why, a comprehension opened up in Cupcake. Here once again he had opened himself up, led her into the very innermost sight of his own personal self. Once more he had been open with her, and as the moonlight flitted around the room, she saw all the little items, everything about him laid bare to her. Even as he lay on his bed, she realized she was still keeping her secrets from him, even as they were for his protection, for her dreams. They were still secrets. Her head turned and fell across the breadth of the bed. Despite the new sheets that lay crisply beneath her, his scent still filled the room. It filled the bed. As she thought of him, she knew that she was being utterly unfair. She knew that most colts would not have to put up with it, would have demanded. But Carrot was no regular colt. No, he was a stallion. A real one. He was living for her, living for every little shred she was giving him. He was hanging on hope. 10 months. For 10 months she had shown him no more of her life than the front of her house, another pony's children, her favorite restaurants. At that time she had met his mother and he had drawn the pain out of her. He shared with her his hopes and dreams. He had waited for her and never been anything other than kind. For 15 long minutes that seemed like an hour, Cupcake thought about this. Thought about how in her life Carrot alone had not wanted anything from her, but to be with her, to be near her. He alone had simply wanted to marvel at her, look deep into her eyes, feel the warmth of her touch. In her life, she had wanted that for him alone too. He was the only one who offered that without a price. 10 months. For 10 months he had believed in her, trusted her. His mother knew. His mother was right. She did risk losing his love every moment she did not open up to him. But the idea of having him end up like the other stallions. Cupcake sat up in bed with a little cry of worry rising from her. Right now she realized there was one thing she could do to show him that his trust, his love was not misplaced. She could in this moment show him that she wanted him in her life. That even an act as simple as those taxes completed downstairs were slowly bringing them together. He deserved this proof. No stallion had ever been so kind to her, had loved her for herself. There's no other stallion in Equestria so patient or so giving. In that instant, she knew how to let him know that he was winning this game of this. She left from the bed and tried downstairs on the hallway on silent hose. Carrot shifted uncomfortably, trying to keep the blanket below him to keep the cold surface of the couch from his body. Keeping the other over him in the spare room grew colder. He read the seam of the couch, trying to get the bed to unfold. Had it jammed halfway, and now he laid awkwardly upon it at an angle, its glistening on his left side, threatening any number of wounds if he turned in that night. This was compounded by the fact that his face was now directly in the moonlight, no matter what position he took. The thought of these torments was driven from as he sighed and found a set of rosy eyes staring down upon his. Oh! Tracy's right now reading a book, so I can do this. Whips and chains and kinky leather, Carrot's going to get laid tonight! Cupcake, he whispered into the night. What's wrong? Do you need? She pressed her lips so forcibly that the bed came unstuck and fell backward on the sofa. He was able to take one small breath as it did. Carrot starling both as to send her sudden act. As he lay there, she stared down to him. To his amazement, her foreleg crossed over him, and sat next to his head. That Cupcake slowly lowered her head again, catching against his lips in a long, lingering kiss. She stood, took a few steps back and raised her hoof to him. Cupcake, he breathed. Please, she said, her voice a soft tremble as he waved her hoof again. With that, he slowly stood, leaving the blankets on the couch as he gathered her hoof into his. With that, she led him back down the hallway. As he entered the bedroom, she lifted his hoof and placed it against her face. He felt the warmth that was flowing from her. He swallowed hard and tried to remain calm as the mayor stood with him in that night, staring at his bed. As the moonlight fell through the room, he took a soft breath, thought of the most perfect thing he could say, and leaned down to her ear. Wherever you want to go, I'll go there with you. If he could have gotten away with it, he would have slapped himself in the forehead. He had read that in a trashy pulp novel once, most likely while waiting in a doctor's office. Even though he meant every word of it, he immediately imagined it came across as a very special sort of awful. To his amazement, he went towards the bed. Lay with me, she whispered. She sat upon the bed and looked at him. Just lay with me here, please, Carrot, she said as her frame outlined by the moonlight. Yes, he said, his voice cracking in the slightest. Of course, Cupcake. Carefully, gingerly, he too entered the bed, and her, and rested himself behind her. As she settled to the crux of his body, wrapping herself with his frame, she felt his strength and tenderness. At times she knew that she would call on knees, but at that moment all she asked for was his hooves. He reached around her, placing his foreleg along hers. With that, she placed her hooves upon his and gave an easy sigh. As he felt her breathing, Carrot was suddenly very happy he had thought about the king-sized bed. As the sound of her breath caught his ears, Carrot was suddenly a huge fan of income taxes. As the feel of her body drifted across the length of his, Carrot decided that Lay with me, though not the destination he had fleetingly imagined, was not such a bad place to go. Not bad at all. Carrot, she whispered, I love you. I trust you. Please don't give up. Don't stop trying to be with me. We're going to be together. I can do it. He kissed her softly on the cheek. As he lay there with her body safe and secure within his embrace, he ran his free hoof across the tones of her mane, lovingly stroking it as he felt her breathing, slow to match his deeper ones, as her heartbeat slowed to match his. With that, she was asleep, the moonlight falling upon the soft expression it dealt across her. Downstairs, the clock struck midnight, and a new day began. As every second ticked by, Carrot could not help but feel that they were sounding out the most perfect day of his life. He felt himself treasuring each second that passed as she lay so close to him, her body to his, sheltered in him. Already she could feel his right foreleg beginning to go to sleep as her head rested upon it. He knew that upon his waking it would torture him, make him pay the price for the wonderful feeling of wholeness that was creeping across him, the wistful feeling of her light frame against his, but he did not care. Slowly, he pulled the sheet over them, and the blankets too. As her sleeping breast raised and lowered the sheets, he gazed over her one last time. Putting his lips to her, he breathed, I love you. In the sound of a whisper, laid his head above hers. Although he thought sleep to be impossible, a sweet sense soon filled him. With that, he went off to dreams that fought very hard to be as wonderful as the waking world. You know, a lot of times my humor when it comes to these fanfics, I realized developed over time. At first, it was just small MST3K stuff. Soon it evolved to more nostalgia critic and Linkara. And I don't mind that. I know some people might say, angry reviewer humor is outdated, or, oh, you're hiding your feelings and all. No. I don't see myself as a critic, a reviewer. Just a guy who likes to sit here and tell you his emotions about things. A lot of times, if you see me get over the top angry about something stupid that, say, Reality Check did, those are my real feelings. When you see these reviews show up at the end of every fic, that's me writing off the top of my head of how I feel. Oh, sure, sometimes I think about it the day before, but most of the time they're coming off the top of my head about what's going on, how I feel about every story. Anything you see me do, I do naturally. So yeah, when I think about myself in the places of brewing community, I like to think of myself as either more of a live reader rather than what Josh Scorcher and the others are. This is just me in my own little world. And I love it every single day.